USC looking more formidable in its third game out, a third consecutive win, this time on the road against the Utah. Back-to-back division winners. So the Trojans now at 3-0. We got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles to help us break down USC and Colorado. Matt, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good, thank you. Great. I was impressed with how USC played this past weekend, especially against Colorado and the place that they needed to win. But they're not out the woods yet. Got a tough one coming up this Saturday afternoon against Colorado, against a familiar coach. So it's always interesting to see stuff like that.
Yeah, old rival Carl Doral is now the head man there, taking over for Mel Tucker at Colorado. The Buffs are 2-0 as well, and USC at 3-0. So didn't have to scrape and claw and sweat it out to the final second as they did against Arizona and Arizona State. So what did you see improved against the Utes?
I saw how the pass rush against the Utes, how USC's pass rush was effective. They were able to get to the quarterback, able to fluster the QB just a bit. I believe they took Rising out the game. Actually, he was injured, and now there's reports saying that he's out for the season. Actually, so out goes Rising, in comes, I believe, Brantley from South Carolina, the transfer from South Carolina.
Bentley. Yep,
Bentley. There we go. In come Bentley from South Carolina. And I mean, it didn't really make much of a difference for the Utes. USC was able to stop the run, which was something that gave them some trouble the last 2 weeks. Was able to force turnovers. Had 5 turnovers too. I mean, that's something we haven't seen USC force 5 turnovers, and I don't know how long it's been just to see that type of performance from the defense. But very impressive performance by the defense. And then the offense, still some struggles, got into the red zone, was unable to get into the end zone that often. I think the score could have been a lot more. I think USC could have put a lot more points on the board, but at the end of the day, you were able to see USC move the ball against Utah, got the run game going a little bit, and also threw in some new things too. Also, you've seen Slovis start hitting his check downs a little bit more too. So he's trying to find openings, but again, it wasn't too pretty, but you're starting to see everything come together for USC.
So we talked last week about Slovis's delivery of the football, and this being noticeable just across the board. It was noticeable to me, and this is before I saw anybody online talk about it. I just thought, the ball's not coming out of his hands as it typically does. I talked to another USC beat writer, saw it all over social media on the main sites and so forth. So it was obviously a thing that everyone recognized. Do we think that Slovis threw the ball better against Utah?
I still don't see the same velocity coming out of his throws. Honestly, it's still looking a little bit wobbly. It looked a little bit weak. And you can tell something is wrong, just how the way the ball is coming out. Now, you've seen some passes with a little zip into it, but still, it's I don't know what it is, honestly. I don't know if he re-aggravated the injury from the Holiday Bowl. I mean, that's all a possibility. I don't know if if it's still the same injury bothering him. I know that I believe he got it checked out, and I believe operated on a little bit or something like that in the off season after the Holiday Bowl, in which we thought, okay, enough time, he can fully recover and everything. Now he had from, I believe, December, from mid-December or whenever the Holiday Bowl took place in December, he had from December all the way out to November pretty much to heal up. So it's telling that something with his throwing arm is bothering him, and we can't pinpoint what it is, because Slovis is saying he's fine, USC is saying he's fine, Helton and Harrow saying he's fine, but obviously we see something is wrong. But a little bit more zip to to his passes, but I don't see enough. I didn't see enough that made me feel comfortable.
On the defensive side, as you mentioned, Cameron Rising had to leave the game. Jake Bentley comes in. He's got a ton of experience from South Carolina. He wasn't too effective as well against the USC defense. So, your evaluation of how the progress is coming on that side of the ball.
I think it's a lot of people who watch football, they understand that in order for your secondary to be successful, you need the pass rush, you need the defensive line, you need the front seven. And the problem for USC has been they haven't been able to get pressure on the QB. That's been a theme under Clancy Pendergast. We saw a little bit of that being an issue against, I believe, against Arizona State. Again, first game, you're trying to get everything together with the new defense, you know, how things are going, schemes, all of that. Looked a little bit better against Arizona, but still the 3rd and long situations had to be patched up. That still needed to be patched up. I think this was where you started to see it start clicking, where you're starting to see the marriage between the pass rush and the secondary, because the secondary is doing a great job with covering guys and being on an island. You know, linebackers, they're you know, I think the linebackers the last 2 games had a decent game. You know, especially seeing that they're lacking depth right now due to injuries and everything. I believe they should get Palote. Oh man, I can't even say the name because now that I've heard the correct saying, I keep getting it differently. But Nail Teote, they should get him back. He was in concussion protocol. That's why he missed last week's game, but he should be back for the Colorado game. Raylan Garforth was seeing snaps, as well as who I believe Goforth saw most of the snaps actually at middle linebacker. So honestly, they're doing a great. I think the defense is starting to click really well. I think they're starting to get it together. They're starting to make plays, and they're really helping out this team stay in games. That's their biggest thing.
And we should also note that the news that came out on Tuesday is that there is a USC player that tested positive for COVID. That player traveled to the Utah game, was testing negative in the 36 hours prior to the game, has tested positive since, but no other players have tested positive. And that particular player, based on the reports that I read, has not been on campus or in the football facilities or close to the team on Sunday or Monday, and obviously not going forward, as they will be quarantined. So it looks like we're still in good shape for a game, but you never know.
Yeah, and that's the thing right now with this college football season, or with 2020 in general, is we don't know. We don't know what can happen. I think it was last week. Remember we talked about, well, let's hope that they're playing Utah still. Like we were talking about, oh, well, they're still playing Utah, or it might be Colorado. So each week you're crossing your fingers and you're like, well, we're playing Colorado, I think, but you could be prepared to play anybody. You can be prepared to play anybody. Right now with the report that just came out that a USC player tested positive for COVID. As you've mentioned, Mark, he tested negative throughout, and then he hasn't been with the team. He's symptomatic as well, so he's been showing symptoms according to reports. So far, no other players have tested negative or have tested positive. Excuse me, no other players have tested positive, but you want to be on the lookout for that leading up, because if you have multiple players testing positive, now you're looking at, well, is this game still going to happen, or does this get pushed back? And that could really hurt not only USC but Colorado, where it may reach the point where they have to push back the game. And this is a pivotal game, mind you, because I believe Colorado is 3-0. I believe it's 2-0 or 3-0. 2-0. So you have Colorado, who's undefeated right now, and USC's undefeated right now. So this game is going to decide the Pac-12 South. You know, this game could put either one of these teams in position if they win. So to have this game postponed or written off because of an outbreak at USC, that could be catastrophic for both the Buffaloes and the Trojans.
Yeah, the Pac-12, more so than the other conferences, in a difficult situation because of starting later than the other four conferences on the first weekend of November. I find it interesting because the Pac-12 was the most resistant and then the last one to schedule a season, that now the Pac-12 has even gone to the length of saying that they will invite non-conference games as long as those teams are willing to travel to a Pac-12 site and play and obviously meet the COVID guidelines, but that they're open to that. And so that opens up a number of possibilities. I don't know if any of them are going to come to pass, but we know that Washington State are not playing their Apple Cup rivalry this weekend. And there was talks of, because Washington was not the team that had the health issues, the testing issues, that they would be open to play whomever. BYU was thrown out there. That would be an intriguing matchup. Something like that. So that's something to look out for, that the Pac-12 has opened itself up to non-conference games. We could have some very interesting matchups if anyone's willing to take them up.
Well, that BYU, and it's interesting you brought up the BYU situation, because I was also going to mention that, because right now they're kind of like at a standoff right now. As of right now, from what I've seen in reports, BYU and Washington are at a standoff. BYU wants Washington to come to Provo, and the only condition is they don't want Washington to cancel, and Washington can't do that. They don't want to do that. So right now it looks like that won't happen. But if USC and Colorado do happen to get postponed or canceled, I keep an eye out for BYU and Colorado. That might be a game. That might end up happening too, or Utah and BYU, because I believe their next game is Arizona State, and Herm Edwards is not clear to coach, and I don't know if ASU is even cleared to play yet. So if that don't happen, do we see Utah and BYU play each other? And in the Holy War? I mean, they're right there next to each other. It makes sense if we're talking about who's available to play, and it don't have to take much timing for it, because literally you could say, okay, we'll go to Provo, or okay, we'll come to Salt Lake City. It can be done. So I will keep an eye out for, if seeing that it's not going to be Washington, I keep an eye out for BYU Colorado if USC doesn't happen with Colorado, or BYU and Utah. And like I said, I don't know the status of Arizona State, but if they're not able to play Utah, BYU and Utah might be that game that might get picked up.
It's a negative situation. It's an unfortunate situation. Hopefully we don't have to go through another football season like that, like this one. But while we're in it, it would be intriguing to see some games get scheduled, like the Cal UCLA game. Came out of nowhere in regards to matching up teams that had opponents who were not able to play and getting that together within 48 hours. But to extend on that to go outside the conference could make for some interesting matchups, because all the conferences are experiencing cancellations every week. So it frees up certain teams to be able to play a game. Interesting. USC 3-0, looking for a Pac-12 South Division title to match up most likely with Oregon, although Oregon and Washington are both undefeated in the North. So when they meet in a couple weeks, hopefully that game gets played. That could serve as kind of a semifinal matchup to get to the big, the Pac-12 championship game. And the same thing with USC and Colorado right now, as Matt outlines. All right, catch up with Matt, the rest of the crew there at Conquest Chronicles on SB Nation. USC and Colorado hopefully will get underway this Saturday. All right, Matt, appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed being on.